Hi everyone, and thank you for checking in. This time I'm going to talk a little bit about the Bitcoin price, look at the chart, look at where the price is right now, and see where it might go. Instead of just looking at the short-term trend, I really want to look at Bitcoin from a long-term perspective because this is the way I look at the whole system, and this is how I personally invest my money into Bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies. And before I go into my thoughts, I want to share with you some other thoughts, starting with kind of a fun video that I really like that communicates the situation really quickly. So check out this video right here.
This one time, Bitcoin went from 6 cents all the way to 36 cents, and then it crashed down to 21 cents. And then another time, Bitcoin went from 85 cents all the way to $29, and then it crashed to $3. And then another time, Bitcoin went all the way to $213, and then it crashed all the way to $70. And then another time, Bitcoin went all the way to $1,100, and then it crashed all the way to $239. So the moral of the story is don't buy Bitcoin because you know it's going to crash again.
Other article that talks pretty much about the same thing that we just saw in this video before, meaning Bitcoin bubbles, is Michael Casey, who explains this in a little more serious way. And so he's wrote this article that I really like, where he basically assumes that Bitcoin is in the beginning of its life cycle. And so different types of people are coming in. And so, but we're probably still in the early adopters phase here. And then the other thing that he points out is that basically the adoption of until kind of everybody will use this technology will take quite a while, and we're in the beginning of this curve here. And he also compares it to other technology, which I really like. And this curve is called an S curve because it looks like an S here. And it means basically the adoption. And it shows that in the beginning, it's kind of slow, and then it grows exponentially. So it looks like it's exploding. But overall, this can take quite a bit of time. And we see here other technologies, how long it took them to basically become mainstream. We see here electricity, the telephone, the refrigerators, and you see all these things happen basically in S curves. And these S curves are steeper or not as steep depending on the technology. And we see recently these S curves have become a lot faster due to technology in general. So we see that the internet took about 20 years, whereas before electricity, it took more like 60 years. The internet almost seems to be like 2 or 3 times as fast, something like that. So we don't know how long this Bitcoin curve is. As we go through these S curves, what often happens with technologies, or here with Bitcoin in particularly, is that we have bubbles. So he now looks at these different Bitcoin bubbles essentially here. And so this is the latest bubble that started basically in 2013, where the price went from $70 all the way to $1,300, and then basically crashed down to $230, which is what we also saw in the video before. And so now we're kind of here at this phase. So you can see this article is from a couple of weeks ago because the price is at 800 here. And right now we're more kind of up here at the $1,000 range right now. But the point is that these bubbles happen because we're going through these hype cycles. And Gartner has defined some of these hype cycles. And we don't just have one of these cycles, but essentially we have lots of these hype cycles throughout the life of a technology. And in Bitcoin, we just see this very quickly because Bitcoin has such a direct measure in its market cap or in its price in general. So this is kind of what we're dealing with. So we're getting lots and lots of bubbles, or the reason why we have these bubbles is because people enter the space, then the price goes up, and then expectations aren't being met, and then the price crashes down. So there is a couple of things that work together that create these cycles, these hype cycles that kind of work like a wave, or almost like a heartbeat, with ups and downs, so to speak, through the life of Bitcoin. And so we see here that these bubbles, there's somewhat of a pattern, or potentially somewhat of a pattern. We don't know. There's only been 5 so far, but they look fairly similar. And this is what we saw in the video. This is what we see here in this article. We see that all these bubbles, they really explode in price, and then they crash, and then they slowly consolidate somewhere towards the height of the previous bubble. And then when that price is breached, the next shoot up in price happens. So this is just something that we see a lot here. And so all these bubbles kind of look the same. At the beginning of the bubble, there was another bubble that slowly had consolidated, and now the price had slowly risen kind of towards that price of the previous bubble. And then we often feel like, now this is kind of a stable price. No, this is not going to be a stable price. Then the next bubble happens, and all this chaos explodes again. So here we just see a bunch of these bubbles, and they look a little bit similar, not completely the same, but they look similar in the sense that there's an explosion and a crash, consolidation, and then slowly the price rises again. So here these are the bubbles in the beginning when the price of Bitcoin was $1, or 30 cents. But the question now is this going to continue, or is this going to change? I personally think this is going to continue. So if we look at this history of the bubbles in Bitcoin, and we look at the current price, what does that mean? And Michael Casey also has a theory here. You can see he created this table with the Bitcoin bubbles, where he created this peak and the baseline, and looked at what was the percentage increase on the one hand, and also what can you buy with 1 Bitcoin. And so we see that the increase in percentage ranges from 3 to 4x all the way to 30x. And so we can now use this to extrapolate what might the next Bitcoin bubble be. And so I believe the baseline of this current bubble, he says it's 700. I think it's a little maybe lower than that. But if we take this price and we say 3x to 10x from there, we come to something that is like 2,000, 3,000 to maybe upwards of 10,000. So this is where I personally think the next bubble, if it comes, will land. I think it'll be between 2 and 10K somewhere. Okay, so let's take a look at the long-term chart of Bitcoin. We see here the price starting in 2013 at Bitstamp. And we see the latest bubble that went all the way to 11 to 1200 here in 2013, crashed down to 200. And now after the consolidation, we see this uptrend now almost to the height of that bubble. In fact, we hit these all-time high prices at the end of last year. And so the question is now what's going to happen from here on out. And so looking at these bubbles in the past, looking at this article, I believe that it is very likely that in the near future, probably in 2017, we're going to break out of this 1100 to 1200 price range here, and then shoot up into the next bubble. That's kind of what I would be guessing if I had to make a bet, which I actually do by basically just holding these Bitcoins. So let's look at the chart in a bit more shorter term view. We also see here there's these minor bubbles. Whenever we break out of the downtrend from an existing bubble, it then shoots up. You can see this here, you can see this here. And so here we're now forming a new downtrend, just like we had done here and just like we had done here. And so this, I think, is very interesting because we have a couple of uptrends. We have an very, very long uptrend that is basically spanning various bubbles, and this uptrend is here right now currently between like 350 and 400. So I think that's the lowest baseline that needs to hold in order for Bitcoin to survive. I think if Bitcoin were to crash down here and then through this uptrend below 300, I think then Bitcoin is going to be dead, or also a sign that Bitcoin just has not survived. Then there's another trend which would also be very serious if this would not happen, because then these bubble trends that we've had in the last, basically throughout the life of Bitcoin would then basically mean that this is not the reality anymore. So I think this trend here is very important to hold. If Bitcoin would to break below 700, I would be very worried and probably want to sell a lot of my Bitcoins. And then there is more short-term trends that if they are broken through, I personally would not be worried to the sense that I would think about actually selling my Bitcoins. So here we have, this is the very latest uptrend here that right now is at 930, so we're very, very close to that. I think it's very possible that we are going to break through down here, and maybe the price is going to consolidate in this sort of area here somewhere. And then I believe because this downtrend is a lot weaker than all of these uptrends, I think the price will break through here and then have enough energy to basically shoot through the 11 to 1200. Before I let you go, there's one more other crazy chart that I have that, by the way, disagrees with me with the price going to 10K next year, but it could definitely go to 2K this year. And this is here a logarithmic chart of the Bitcoin price. So you can see here over time all the Bitcoin price chart, but on a logarithmic scale. Every step here is 10x. And so right now we are at the 1000 peak. And so here we see that it basically estimates that that we will reach 10K in the year 2021 and then 100K in 2026. So this is also maybe just an interesting thing to look at. Keep in mind that in order for Bitcoin to reach 100K, a lot of things needs to happen, including other cryptocurrency not taking over the space of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin also needs to improve a lot of its scalability and all these technical issues that it has at this point in time. Now, having said all of this, please keep in mind that I'm not a professional. I have no clue what I'm talking about. This is not investment advice. This is just an entertainment video from me to you. So please keep that in mind. Should you even think about investing into this very volatile space? And if you do so, please also take into account that there's many bad things that can happen. If any other cryptocurrency comes close in market cap to Bitcoin, then it can crash very quickly down to basically nothing. So keep in mind that all the money you invest into Bitcoin, it is like a gamble where you can lose all of it. So you must be able to sustain these big losses that happen in this crypto space, unfortunately.